Hello, everybody. This is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. I'm here in Santa Clara where today the 49ers held their second day of OTAs. Wanted to come on and give you a quick update on what I saw and some of my observations from the day. And we'll start off with the players who are not participating. Deebo Samuel, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Alex Mack were not expected to be on hand. None of them were. In addition to those three, the following players were not on the field: George Kittle, Javon Kinla, Mike McGlinchey, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Aziz Al-Shaair, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Kyle Juszczyk, Daniel Brunskill, Ambry Thomas, Elijah Mitchell, and Trent Williams. Of those, Kyle Shanahan did say that he expects to have Deebo Samuel in attendance for San Francisco's mandatory minicamp in June. That's important to note. Also, Trey Lance. And Trey Lance, the second-year quarterback, is expected to take over the reins of the San Francisco offense, and he did that today. He looked confident throughout practice, showing off a more compact throwing motion. Throughout the day, he was able to complete 16 of his 20 attempts. That's off of my count. When you're watching him, there was still a little bit of a wobble at times with his throws, but it wasn't anything too bad. And for the most part, did a really good job of getting the ball out quick and getting it on time to his receivers. Of the 20 attempts that he had today, there was only one that I would knock him on, and he started off looking to his right. Took him a little bit too long to come back to his left, and by the time he did, it was late, and the ball was incomplete on an out route. But other than that, it was a really good day for Trey Lance. He started off the day, went underneath quite a bit during the 7-on-7 periods. He completed his first 5 throws during 7-on-7 were all to running backs and tight ends, but he did drill a nice throw over the middle to Ross Dwelley. It was really nice. And then in a short team session near the end of practice, you got to see Lance come off of play action, hit his back foot, find new 49ers wide receiver Ray McCloud coming across the middle from left to right on a dig. Lance did a nice job of stepping up and drilling that ball in there. And really throughout the entire practice, Lance did a really good job of working the middle of the field, and even drew the praise of veteran safety Jimmy Ward for his ability to fit the ball in to a tight window against his coverage. So it was a really good day all in all, considering it was day 2 of OTAs. Lance, like I said, his throwing motion definitely seems to have been shortened up a little bit, and he's the players and the coaches coaching staff, at least Kyle Shanahan spoke today, but a number of the players that spoke with the media today praised where Trey Lance is in his development and where he's leading the team. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Today's session was the only one of this week's 49ers practices that was open to the media. So we'll get another look at him next week, and then there's the mandatory minicamp that's going to be coming up in mid-June. And again, that mandatory minicamp in mid-June, Kyle Shanahan said that he expects to have Deebo Samuel on hand for that. So that'll definitely be something to keep up on, along with the progress that we're seeing from Trey Lance. But it was a really good second day for Trey Lance, but a good first day for him in front of the media. Also, since we're talking about quarterbacks, we had a little bit of an update on Jimmy Garoppolo. Kyle Shanahan was asked after practice about Jimmy Garoppolo, and he said that he expects him at some point, most likely to be traded. That's not news, I don't think, if you've been really paying attention to the whole offseason and the direction that the 49ers are taking here. It really goes back to last year when they made the trade up to number 3 to select Trey Lance. But it definitely seems to be trending the direction that Jimmy Garoppolo will not be on the 49ers next season. And that's something, like I said, that's been going in that direction throughout this whole way. So we got a little bit more information on that from the 49ers today, and from Kyle Shanahan in particular. Vincent Johnston over in the comments asks if Trey still had the wobble. And he did. There was still some wobble in his throws at times. Watching them during their individual period, Trey Lance has some wobble, and Nate Sudfeld had some wobble. The guy that threw the tightest spiral of the day was the guy with probably the least amount of arm on the team, and that's Brock Purdy. He throws a really nice tight spiral. We'll get into Purdy a little bit here in a minute as well, but yeah, Trey Lance still has the wobble, but that's not that bad. Most of his balls were, there was only one today that was You could say it was in between a bad pass and a drop, but for the most part, the receivers did a fine job holding on to his passes today. That'll be something that I know people remember from last year, but he did a really good job. I felt like today, Trey Lance did. He wasn't going down the field very much. We didn't see anything deep down the field from Lance. When I mean deep, I mean a deep shot. We did see him make a couple of nice throws into the intermediate level, 15, 20-yard digs, those types of things. He had in addition to the really nice ball to Ross Dwelly, he had a really nice one to Juwan Jennings as well, who was covered by Samuel Womack on that play. So some really good things from Trey Lance. A lot of stuff underneath. 12 of his 16 completions were to tight ends and running backs. So there was definitely a number of checkdowns. But some of those completions, at the second level were to the tight ends as well. Again, that's not all that surprising either. Having watched as much Trey Lance as I have going back to his North Dakota State days and kind of what we've seen here a little bit, he definitely doesn't shy away from using those tight ends. And so it makes sense that the 49ers are really making a push to add tight ends. And we've seen them add a couple here in the last 2 weeks to the roster. So we will see how that goes and how that moves along. Did I see the Grant versus Kinla incident? It wasn't much of a Grant versus Kinla incident, but I was there. I saw it, and I don't know what was said because it was said quietly. I was standing 2 people over from Grant at the time and actually caught his hat when it got flicked off of his head. So, not the right thing to do there by Javon Kinla. And, Grant, myself, all of us who cover the 49ers, we all have our opinions, and you just can't be doing that kind of stuff if you're in Javon Kinla's situation, in his position. You can't be doing that if you're in anybody's position out there on the street. You just can't walk up to somebody and you can say something to them if you want, but you can't put your hands on them. So that was not a good look by Javon Kinla today. Moving on to the 49ers news, I will say this. The throw of the day, though, that award goes to Nate Sudfeld. It's a beautiful one. San Francisco raised a few eyebrows by giving Sudfeld that $2 million contract to back up Trey Lance this season. But, there was a really nice play during their 7-on-7 period where Sudfeld dropped back. He saw new safety George Odom bite on an underneath route, which allowed Malik Turner to get behind him for a 55-yard touchdown on a deep post, kind of a skinny post, but it was deep. And Turner beat Kadar Holman on the route, and Sudfeld put it up nice, and it just hit him right in stride in the end zone for a couple yards short of the end zone. He walked in for a touchdown. Really nice throw on the part of Nate Sudfeld. Definitely had a good practice today as well. He only had a couple of incompletions by my count. So really good job today by Nate Sudfeld as well, that pass in particular. In terms of run of the day, the run of the day award for me today goes to Jordan Mason. In these practices, they're only wearing helmets, no shoulder pads, no other pads, just the helmets. Then when they went to 11-on-11, they even took their helmets off to try to protect the linemen and stuff so there wouldn't be much contact. So that limited, it was very limited. Running backs were really limited in their the plays and the way that they were used today. Mostly they're running passing routes. However, when they went to a brief 11-on-11 team period, we saw Trey Sermon. He had a couple of nice runs, a couple of nice, he was very decisive cutting and getting through the line on a couple of his carries. But it was undrafted free agent Jordan Mason who, really impressed me. He just was able to explode and burst on one, took it all the way to the house. Nobody was able to touch him, and it was just an explosion through the 49ers defense. A really nice run by the undrafted free agent there. Somebody that I think will have a shot to. I'm not sure if he'll make the 49ers roster directly out of training camp, but if they can get him somehow onto the practice squad, if he doesn't make that 53-man roster, that would be a nice get for the 49ers because he definitely, at least without the pads on right now for what he showed today, looked like he had some ability. That'll be something to monitor as we get into the summertime because right now it looks like he has the ability to stick around for a little while. Another new addition would be Kimoko Ture. The 49ers added the Indianapolis Colts defensive lineman late in free agency. Today, during that brief team period, Ture lined up on the right side of the 49ers offense, the left side of the defense, and he blew right around right tackle Jalen Moore. He had a clear shot on Nate Sudfeld. And if this was a game, Sudfeld would have been on his back. he just got around him so quick. He had to pull up and moved out of the way. Sudfeld was able to step up and find Brandon Ayuk for a completion. But if this had been a game situation, like I said, this would have been a clear sack for Trey, who definitely got the best of the second-year offensive lineman there. Really today, when it comes to the passing game, it was the tight ends that stood out the most. George Kittle didn't participate, but they still had 5 tight ends out there running routes and working on their game. The tight ends overall, by my count, finished with 9 receptions on the day, with Ross Dwelly leading the way with 4 receptions. Really good day for Ross. Had a couple of short receptions, as well as a couple of nice ones over the middle, a little bit deeper down the field. So really nice there. Matt asks if they are practicing on turf or grass. They practice on grass. They don't practice on the turf. They always practice on the grass. They have 2 grass fields that they work off of, and that's what they were working on today. As far as the depth chart, the number of people were asking about this, so I wanted to just note that as well. There was no Trent Williams, no Alex Mack, no Daniel Brunskill, and even no Mike Levinci. So 4/5 of the Flyers' offensive line was not practicing today. However, so what we saw when they lined up is we saw Colton McKivitz at left tackle, the same spot that he manned during Week 18 against the Rams. Aaron Banks, the second-year player, was lined up at left guard. That's where he's expected to be. Number of people, that's kind of the expectation that we'll see Aaron Banks at left guard when the team is all together later on this summer. Jake Brendel was working with the first-team offensive line, the center, veteran center, 30 years old. Has only started a few games in his career during his time in Miami is when he did that. Jalen Moore, who I mentioned just a minute ago, he was working with the first-team unit at right guard, and then it had Justin School lined up at right tackle. As for the draft picks, Spencer Burford and Nick Zakel, they worked at guard with the second unit. Burford was working at right guard, Zakel at left guard. And then you also have the undrafted free agent rookies, Donovan West and Jason Poe. They were working with the third group. Slam Schluter is also an undrafted free agent. He was working out with the because there was no Trent Williams, he was working with the second unit and the third unit in there. So interesting way that they did that with the offensive linemen. Makes sense given the everything we've heard leading up to this point. As far as the secondary goes, we had Talanoa Hufanga. He was lined up at safety opposite of Jimmy Ward, as expected. Jimmy Ward had a lot of really nice things to say about Talanoa Hufanga and about the way that Hufanga is able to communicate on the field, and even helped him out today. There would have been a coverage break on one instance, but Hufanga was able to catch it, get Ward's attention before the snap, and they were able to get it under control, and everything worked out fine for the 49ers. So, Talanoa Hufanga looked, like I said, he looked good. Jimmy Ward said he looked good. It's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I feel like Hufanga is a favorite amongst the 49ers coaching staff and the organization, and that it's Hufanga's job to lose, starting opposite of Ward there in the secondary. And then on the outside, no surprises. Emmanuel Mosley on one side, free agent acquisition, Charvarius Ward on the other. Ward did a nice job in man coverage today. Went up a couple of times against both Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings. Kept a close eye on both of those, and he was able to run stride for stride and really physical with them, and just did a really nice job of using his speed there. As far as the slot, the Flyers lost K'Wan Williams in free agency to the Denver Broncos. Today it was Darqueze Dennard who was the first man up in the slot. In addition to Dennard, we saw Quantrez Knight, Samuel Womack, and Diamador Lenore also taking snaps inside. Knight, he signed as an undrafted free agent, came away with the only turnover of the day. And lo and behold, it came off of fellow rookie Brock Purdy. And it happened on the final play of practice during team period. Not to pick on Brock, because it's not his fault that you have people who are saying that he should be the starting quarterback in place of, be on the depth chart ahead of Trey Lance. But that's why I think it's notable that he was the one that threw the interception today. It was actually, what was happening on that play was Tyrion Davis-Price was running a route. He was well covered by the linebacker. There was some pressure, and Purdy was trying to fit the ball underneath to him. The linebacker was able to get his hand on it, tip the ball up in the air. The ball bounced around a couple of times, and Knight just happened to be in the right place at the right time and got the takeaway. Nice play on his part. Good job of being in the right spot. And the undrafted free agent there, like I said, he got the first reps. He was the second man up in terms of the rotation today in the slot, but you also saw Samuel Womack in there a little bit, as well as Diameter Lenore. On the injury front, Javon Kinla, Mike McGlinchey were both on hand. They're continuing to make strides in returning from their injury, according to Kyle Shanahan. Both were on hand. McGlinchey was actually, standing behind the offensive lineman, giving encouragement to them and help coach them up a little bit. That was good to see. Already talked a little bit more about the Javon Kinla's day. As far as Azeez Al-Shaair, he was not on the field, as well as Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. Al-Shaair is recovering from offseason shoulder surgery, but he's expected to be ready in time for training camp. And then also, as you know, San Francisco re-signed Jason Verrett recently, the veteran cornerback who tore his ACL in Week 1 against Detroit. He's working his way to get back on the field. They expect him to be ready to participate with the team when they come back in training camp. So that's my report. We'll take a look at a couple of the questions, though, over in the comment section. Brandon's asking, how did Danny Gray look? Gray looked okay. Didn't really get to see a whole lot of him during the 7-on-7 period. They did try to hit him deep once. There was an overthrow. He kind of got held up in the coverage there. Wasn't able to get behind the coverage like they were hoping, and so the pass from Sudfeld was long. Didn't really get to see. Didn't really make an impact. That's one of the my biggest takeaways also from today is that, when I did this after the rookie minicamp, I mentioned, wanting to see how these rookies would perform once all the veterans were back on the field. And, Gray didn't get a target today. As far as he got the one target, that was it. Sam Womack did okay in coverage. He got beat on an in-breaking route. I think they were playing zone on that one. Not 100% sure, but the rookies didn't stand out today necessarily. It was good to see, Spencer Burford getting the reps that he got there at right guard. So get to see that. And Zakel over there at left guard. Tyrion Davis-Price had a ball tip off of his hands. The passing game's just really not his forte, his specialty. So a little bit of a struggle there for him today. Didn't really get the ball very much in the running game either. They only ran a few plays as far as in a full team setting. And it was primarily Jermichael Hasty and Jeff Wilson Jr. who were running with the ones. And then you had, next up was Trey Sermon, and then you had Tyrion Davis-Price after that. So I don't remember seeing him get the ball in a running situation. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. That he's going to be building that up and see him once they get to the get to training camp and have their shoulder pads and everything on, and he can actually use his strength, the strength of his game to go out there and make some plays. So I just want to say thank you very much to Brandon who put out gave me a super chat for that question. So thank you very much. And then also, we'll be back. I think there'll be another session next week that's going to be open to the media. And then, like I mentioned, there will be the mandatory minicamp coming up in the middle of June. So keep an eye locked, keep your eyes locked here on the channel if you can, as well as there's some footage from practice that I got. There was about a 12, 15-minute video of Trey Lance and the quarterbacks working out. Found that to be interesting as well. New quarterback coach doing different things. That's part of what I noticed today was how much different it was between working with Brian Greasy and Kubiak as compared to last year under Rich Scangarello. They still had him doing some of the moving drills. Basically, they had the bags laid out, moving back and forth, but not going forward and back, just side to side. One of the interesting things that I did notice is that they had two screens that they'd put up that was really forcing the quarterbacks to have to get the ball up and over. I really like that. That was something that I had talked about a little bit last year. Having those screens there between the quarterback and the receiver, it was probably about 6.5, 7 feet high. And so it really forces them to get their arm up and get the ball over the top of those. Imagine it being a defensive lineman's hands. They got their hands up like that, having to get the ball up over that. So that was a nice change of pace that I saw for the quarterbacks and some of the drills that they have. So when you get a chance, go check that video out. You'll see that on the video that I put up from practice today. Also had a little bit shorter video with the offensive line, so you can see them working on some of their drills and working on their run blocking. So take a look at all that as well. Did you already go over Wobble Watch? Lee wants to know. I actually mentioned that during practice at one point. I wasn't charting the wobbles, but there was definitely a little bit of a wobble for Trey Lance. But all the quarterbacks had a wobble today, so I wouldn't say that his was any worse than anyone else. But it was a good practice for Trey Lance, good practice for the 49ers as well, getting the work in early. This is my first time going through OTAs and going through the entire offseason program. I started here covering the 49ers a couple years ago, but as far as being able to do it here at the facility, started with training camp last year. So to go through this entire process is going to be fun for me. It was good to see the rookies. It was nice to see the transition to the full team today, and it'll be even better as this process goes along. And the guys like George Kittle and Fred Warner are back on the field and participating as well. So just want to say, take a second to shout everybody out in the comments section. Thank you very much for taking a look at this. I'll be back with reports after every practice and throughout the off season, especially when we get to training camp. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, comment as well underneath those videos. Help get this channel going, and so we can continue to put more content out and get you guys everything that you're looking for as far as 49ers news. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day. I will be back on Thursday with the Hammer and Nail Show with more information on the 49ers. Take care, everybody.